Hello, BookTube. I have some older books I want to talk about with you today. I got a text from an old friend here in Boston who runs a church and who regularly collects all kinds of books for charity events and whatnot. And he said that his recent collections, the boxes had a whole bunch of books that gave him a Steve vibe, which means basically that they weren't old James Patterson or Tom Clancy novels, that he seemed to think there would be something there of interest. And he told me that I needed a break and that I should come over and look at them all and take what I want. And he was right on both counts. He was right that I need a break. It's been, dog duty has been especially taxing in the last couple of days. And he was also right that there were Steve books in the collection. And there were also a lot of books. I mean, he did really well, so I didn't feel bad about filling a bag with books. The only bad part of it was that I had no Sherpas of any kind with me. No out-of-town guests, no muscular teenagers, no nothing. So I had to carry them myself, but it was good to get away for just an hour and a half or so, just 2 hours. And I wanted to show you the books, starting with this one from the 1950s. This is The Shakespeare First Folio by W. Gregg, a great Shakespearean scholar. And I have never read this book. It's a bibliographical history, a study of the Shakespeare First Folio. And I've seen it referenced, and I've read about the Shakespeare First Folio, especially Emma Smith just did a book, I think it was last year, on the same subject, on the history and the reception of the First Folio. And everybody that writes about it always mentions this book. So I was very happy to find it, and will consume it right away. And I'm sure that it will raise in my mind the same question that such books always do, which is why there is no Penguin classic of the Shakespeare First Folio. I don't understand that. Scholarly editions have come and gone in the last 100 years with full annotations. I don't understand why Penguin doesn't just buy one of those and reprint it as a Penguin classic. If their line is dedicated in part to books that have had a huge influence on English literature, there's scarcely one that exists that's had a greater influence on English literature, and yet there's no big fat Penguin classic of the First Folio. That's a little bit of a mystery to me, but it would be great to read this book. And then the next one is this. This is volume 2 of a series 2, which I do not have volume 1, but that's all right. This is The Wars of America by Bob Leckie, who is a great military historian. Just fantastic, really. His books, if you'll see them in used bookstores. He did a lot of books, and they're well worth getting. All of them are. And this is a study of the Wars of America from 1900 to 1992. It's mind-boggling that any author could. What is this? This is 1,100 pages long. It's mind-boggling that anybody could get. 1,100 pages is what most authors now use for one of those wars, and this is all of them. From World War I all the way to the Gulf War. And I don't think I've ever read this. I know that a long time ago I was studying the Korean War, and I read the chunk of this on that, but I don't think I've read the whole book. And he's in addition to being a really good military historian, he's a really good prose stylist. So it'll be a pleasure to do. I have a lot of his other books scattered around the place, so it'd be nice to read this one. And then, speaking of the Korean War, I found this. This is David Halberstam's book, The Coldest Winter, which is his big history of the Korean War. And in the boxes that my friend had, it existed like this. No dust jacket. Just the cover illustration that's printed onto the hardbacks. If I recall correctly, the dust jacket was kind of a misty thing that obscured this like snow. And ordinarily that would be a deal breaker. Ordinarily I would want it. The dust jacket, I mean. But I actually kind of like this. The more I read a chunk of the first chapter on the way back, and I've been dipping into it ever since, and I like it. I like it a little more without the dust jacket. Especially since, if I remember correctly, in addition to being a little bit simple, the dust jacket was also incredibly delicate. And this is not. I don't have to worry about this thing at all. And I've got I've got the wars of Southeast Asia on my mind, I guess. But the next one is this, a hardcover of something I've only ever had in a ratty trade paperback that was so stiff and poorly made that I really couldn't read it. I used to look at it all the time and think, well, I'm not in the mood to negotiate with that. And you don't need a book like that in your collection. All your books need to be able to be read. And it's this. It's Six Men by Alistair Cooke, who he was a BBC personality and a newspaper guy from post-war England. He did Letter from America, I think it was called, forever and ever. It just went for 30-something years, where as a de Tocqueville kind of outsider looks at America type thing. It was very popular on both sides of the Atlantic. And he was also forever and ever the host of Masterpiece Theater, and did a really good job. And this is biographical portraits of his, of 6 people that he knew: Charlie Chaplin, H.L. Mencken, Adlai Stevenson, the Duke of Windsor. Who else have we got here? Bertrand Russell and Humphrey Bogart. And they're not meant to be scholarly. They're buttressed with research, because he would always do that. He would always go to the nearest really big stocked library and dig around on his subjects, even if he knew the subject really well. But they're mainly impressionistic. They're mainly impressionistic portraits, and I like that. I really wish that Alistair Cooke had done a book called 20 Men or 200 Men instead of just this. And I'm often tempted. I will read this. I have read the Edward VII or the Edward VIII chapter of this many times. I haven't read the others as often, but I will read the whole thing again. And I'm often, the last 2 times that I read the Edward VIII part and dipped into the others, the Humphrey Bogart one is especially good, I was struck with an urge to do 200 Lives myself, since I'm an enormous fan of Plutarch. But this is a great way to do it, and it's also great that the cover design, it's just him in his library. That it conveys what you're going to get. You're going to get polished reminiscences rather than any attempt at like a scholarly biography, which is great. I love that. And then the last one is a classic, and I'm so happy to have it in a hardcover, to have it in a form that I reread it all the time. It's YA before that term existed. It's Owls in the Family by Farley Moat, who's will be more famous to you for all of his famous nature books. This is a whimsical story of him and his family and his friends growing up, and they find 2 owls, a big owl and a little owl. They call them Wall and Weep, and they keep them as kind of family pets, or really ambassadors. They're never really fully domesticated. And this book is the story of their adventures in the family. It's got wonderful illustrations by Robert Frankenberg. Let me see if I can show you. They're all throughout. The illustrations are all throughout, and they are great. They make habitat for the owls and give them a place to live, and they learn their personalities, and the owls learn their personalities, and it's just the perfect blend of sentimentality and humor, and it ends in just the way that I always like. I mean, there's a fable quality to the whole thing, and Farley Moat knows that, and he ends it with in the perfect way that you would if you know that. He ends it with a note from the author. Were Wall and Weep's real owls? Of course they were. And Mutt and Rex and Murray and Bruce and I were real. And if you should happen to be going to Saskatoon in the spring of the year, and if you should happen to take a walk across the prairie, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if you happen to meet some of us. And if it's a big white owl and a not-so-big brown owl you meet, give them my love, will you? That's wonderful. That means that the story goes on forever, which is just what you want in a fable like this. So there you go. That is the free book haul that I got just to get out of the house and away from mopping up urine. I got Owls in the Family. I got 6 Men by Alistair Cooke, finally in a hardcover that I can simply reread. I got The Coldest Winter by David Halberstam. that everybody who looks at my library shelves from now on is going to have to pull it down to find out what it is. I got The Wars of America by Robert Leckie, the volume 2, covers the 20th century, and a study of Shakespeare's first folio that I have only heard about in rumor. I have never actually read it. I've heard many, many Shakespeare scholars say that it's brilliant, so I can't wait to get to it. And that's it for now. So I'll see you soon, book 2. Thank you.